Okay. Well, first of all, thank you to Lawrence for inviting me, and thank you for Jane to put me in the slot. You know, we're all here because we care, right? We're not here because it's digital. We're not here because it's a summit. We're here because we're looking for impact. And frankly, there are very, very few bad actors in this world who are not trying to do their best. Even politicians are trying to do their best. Governments are trying to do their best. We're all here because we want to make a difference and a change in the world. We have to accept that actually our current models or paradigms, of capitalism, of democracy, are under threat. And it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, if anyone who lives in Britain will be, self-harming every morning, and so we got to look for different paradigms. And I am indeed, very vocal to say that blockchain is that missing link. Because what we're looking for is a link between financial value, which runs the world, non-financial value, and the alignment of our views. And we believe, and in China we believe, that blockchain is that essential part difference. So let's, okay, first of all, very briefly, because we're not here to discuss, the way we approach this, the way we consult to the British government, to the Chinese government. I sit on a 7-person committee that has responsibility for blockchain in China, $103 trillion worth. 70% of blockchain is in China, 70% of cryptocurrencies are in China. On my advisory board, there's a guy who's chair of NEO, one of the biggest ICOs in China, and the guy who, at the height, was worth $10 billion in Bitcoin, is now probably half that, poor guy. And, but these guys are real movers in China. And so we come in from we're a not-for-profit think tank. We're quite big. We've got 160-odd thousand members. And we consult to lots of corporates around the world on non-financial value. Okay? And our big focus is, we know the currency of financial value is $1, but what's the currency of non-financial value? How do we measure our heart? How do we measure love, happiness? Because, blockchain is about the movement of a digital asset from A to B, something which has a value. But love has value, kindness has value, and, hope has value. And so our focus has always been on this area. Okay, so while this builds in the background, let me continue from the interesting conversation we just had. So in China, despite the fact that people have said that, our committee, we have the power of life, death, I should say, or life imprisonment. Okay, so it's quite a serious subject, right? But the fact is that in China, we believe data belongs to the government. In America, they believe data belongs to corporates. We give you this data for free, and you give us your data so we can sell stuff to you. In Europe, we believe data belongs to ourselves. My data, my way. But anyone who lives in Europe who thinks GDPR is working, well, all I do is press cookie button 50 times a day, and I think, wow, this is my data now. It's not your data, okay? No one's got time to read these terms and conditions. So we have built several instruments to try and help these governments. And some will surprise you, some will be very obvious. So China, why is China so interested in this sector? Why has the president come out in the past few weeks, but he actually came out a year ago and said this, that blockchain is one of the main fourth industrial revolution technologies like AI, like IoT, and there's another category we're responsible for, which is going to change the society in China. Because in China, we have 1.4 billion people. This is a big movement, and they're in a hurry. That first line, ending the last 1% of poverty. Any other country, you say we're going to end the last 1% of poverty, we say 30-year program, 100-year program, a task force, let's do a few reports. The British way, let's have our cups of tea and biscuits and so on and talk about it. In China, 2020 is the due date to get last 1% out. So when you have lots of data, because the government believes it's their responsibility to protect the people, they use data to move that transition. Are eggs broken? Absolutely. Okay, the Chinese government are not perfect, right? But their intent is to transform their society. You know, they have a social credit system in China, which means bad actors are negated and good actors are rewarded. Now you may go, wow, that's terrible, you know? I'd like to be bad and still have my cake, you know? Of course, in America, you can be, you know, money is the ultimate metric, isn't it? You know, you can be black or woman or Mexican, but if you have money. If you don't, you can't be any of those three, because you're not going to get anywhere. So China has a different philosophy. It's a different attempt to look at their society. And, you know, they have payment systems like Alipay, WeChat Pay, and they're now coming out with a new decentralized payment systems because they are not looking for central banks. Banks control the Western markets, but they're looking for different peer-to-peer, people-to-people power. So these are different philosophies, you know? And of course, the infamous, you know, One Belt, One Road initiative, where they are trying to export their culture and their wishes and their hopes for the world to other countries. You know, it's some people call it neocolonialism, okay, or debt diplomacy, and others will say actually they're trying to also move society to a better framework. It's always an attempt. So we do a lot of work in China. I can't say too much, but we do a lot of work in China. We do a lot of work with the United Nations SDGs. That's my CEO in the United Nations with Alibaba's #1 investor, Ben Tan. And you know, what we're trying to, there's 300 Chinese we took there. And what we're trying to do is change how the United Nations, because what the United Nations did wonderfully is they codified good behavior. They codified it through 17 SDGs. That's a hard task, all right? It's a hard task. You know, if there were a dictatorship, it would go a lot quicker, wouldn't it? But they're not. And so it was a tough gig. We're working in the Middle East. My colleague here from one of our banking operation is going to be just on his way to Dubai. And in the Middle East, you know, the top 3%, there's a couple of countries which are in the Middle East of financial value. But they're not even the top 20 of non-financial value. Soft power. Not even the top 20. And they want to transform their society and say, we don't want people to value us in the Middle East because of our money. They should value us because of our intent for society. And then finally, more recently, we are quite heavily involved in the UK in certain things which you'll all be familiar with and wake up to every morning around frictionless trade, Brexit, etc. Because, you know, we're not trying to do Brexit in Britain, are we, for financial value? I mean, all the indicators are pretty obvious, right? It's because we believe in Britain have voted, good or bad, that the values of Europe do not align to the values that they have. Okay? And that's something to think about. So very briefly, the first thing you have to do, as our colleagues have mentioned, is actually, you know, you have to measure what is good and what's bad, right? There are about 2,500 metrics in the world, let me tell you. Our specialty is in a very, very narrow area around procurement. You can now get the idea. We're very big in banking and very big in procurement around the world because these are where money is, and that's where big influences happen. And in procurement, you know, we brought out the metric that underlies the Social Value Act, 2012 in this country, the Modern Slavery Act, 2015 for Theresa May before she became Prime Minister. I did my work for Cameron as a big society impact investment advisor when we set that up. And the similar laws are in India, in Mauritius, Indonesia, 2% CSR laws, and lots of EU commissions. So we brought out a metric which is the corollary to the price-earnings ratio. The PE ratio is a single number index for financial value. I run a couple of listed companies, and I can tell you, PE is the only thing that counts. You know, you look at every day in the PE, can I buy another Ferrari, can I buy another house? But the SE is the social earnings ratio, and P plus SE is then the total value. It happened to fit the blockchain very well, because in our paradigm of the world, a block of value is not just a financial asset, It's a non-financial asset, the red mark, and the blue mark, which is the financial asset. And the stuff that we developed over years, which the Vatican very embarrassingly called the God metric, which was like a marketing from heaven when it came through, we found a way very quickly to measure non-financial value in milliseconds using sentiment analysis, nothing new. Okay, this is what Google uses, Facebook uses. You know, it's a standard way of measuring value and people's values. Okay, the first process, including all these countries, is we write white papers and we then disseminate. There's a load there, 14, but it can go on. The difference in blockchain is that you don't go for peer-reviewed, which takes 2-3 years, forever. I mean, frontiers in blockchain is 90 days. But honestly, it's a horrendous. By the time 2.5 years is gone and someone says no, the whole idea just fell apart. You throw it out there in social media and they will, especially through WeChat groups, they will absolutely crucify you. They will death threats come through, all sorts of things. But that's at least they care. We do publish in peer-reviewed journals. We have, we kind of run 4 frontiers, which Jane mentioned. We're bringing out a new one called the Token, Value and Cryptocurrencies, Value and Values, with a New York publisher, and then we have our own couple, one from the government in the UK, and Social Value and Intangibles. So we get it out there because academics are non-partisan. They're neutral. They will test your theory and say, these are the reasons to move it on. Okay, so I'm going to describe 2 of the projects that we're now in development. One is to do with banking. Okay, now, a bank is where we put money. We can register assets like, obviously, cash, diamonds, gold, anything of value. But wouldn't it be great if we could also bank love, happiness, and hope for our society? In Dubai, they have a happiness ministry. You see, in the Middle East, money isn't the problem, is it? They're looking for other ways, other kinds of assets to move things around. And so we're registering a PRA and an e-license through FSA in the UK, London-based bank. My colleague Mufta, who's in the back, you're welcome to talk to him later, is where we're taking our regular instruments like social impact bonds and loyalty programs, and where preferential loan rates, et cetera, and currencies, and moving it into a different paradigm. And who are asking us to do these things? Governments. You see, our society has got to change. The other exciting venture we have is in procurement because, I have said, I'm often quoted, that procurement is the single most important instrument to change the world. Billions go through procurement every second from governments. And if you can start to nudge that, that changes. So we have a procurement foundation. It's right now very big in Africa because they have no legacy products. In Africa, there's something called tenderpreneur, which means corrupt tendering, basically, where they need to change the society because money is missing and going to wrong places. So we bring out 2 instruments under the Transnational Transparent Procurement Foundation. They're not-for-profit again. And they are, one is to put all the compliance issues on a blockchain, so all suppliers down the supply chain could actually refer to it and stick it there. And it's also the same model for frictionless trade in Britain. And the other is actually to pay your staff, your suppliers, maybe 1% in a token of your value, of your corporate's value. And in order for them to cash it in, they've got to comply with those values. Not just by saying, yes, I love children and trees. They actually have to enact those things. All right? Anyone who works, we've done a lot of work in modern slavery, and I can tell you, if just a little sentence on the website is not enough. Okay, you've got to actually, so procurement and banking are our 2, and we have Terry, who's come down from the TTP Foundation to actually talk to people who are interested in that. So finally, I guess our big work, we temper everything we do through academic work. We're very boring academics. I'm so sorry to tell you this. And we have about 20-odd universities we work with. We have 3 in particular, Chengdu, who have about 40 PhDs in blockchain, I mean, anyone who works in blockchain, but no, PhD in blockchain in most universities, if you get 2, it's like, whew, big deal. Like, you know, but in China, 2 is last Thursday. Okay, here, we're talking about 40 PhD students. And we have my own Birmingham City University and at Fordham in New York, which is, by the way, Trump's university. Jane knows. Okay, there you go. He's always calling me. No, he's not. Okay, all right. So finally, you know, our hope and dreams for the future is by 2030, we are trying our best to run a world which is a blockchain ecosystem, which consists where everything meshes together, the way we purchase things, the way we align ourselves to our customers, to our suppliers, where we actually engage. Blockchain is the new instrument, it's the new kid in town, it is 10 times bigger than the internet, things are happening, and our dream is that, and we're working pretty hard at it, is that it will be there for the future. I wish to thank you. If you're welcome to communicate with me. My CEO, who's number 3 in Barclays, and when she saw this morning, I sent it to her. She said, "My God, does this mean you are the missing link? Are you like the missing link between apes and humans?" I said, "Yes, actually, that's probably the case." Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Jane, thank you very much.
Thank you.